If you have been with me since the beginning of season 2, I want to talk to you directly today because you may be wondering. You came to a podcast called 1-800 Gold Digger, a podcast about ambition, about growth, about becoming the woman you want to be. And somewhere along the way, I started talking about grief, about guilt, about the things I never said to my mother, about a friend I lost, about the exhaustion of always being the strong one, about the version of yourself that got you here and why she might not be the one who takes you forward. And maybe you have been listening and thinking, Mika, what does all of this have to do with my goals? What does grief have to do with ambition? What does a conversation with my mother have to do with how I show up at work? What does the inner stuff have to do with the outer results? Well, everything. It has everything to do with it. And that is what this episode is about. I will tell you why in this episode, why the personal stories, why the vulnerabilities, why I keep going back to the uncomfortable places instead of staying in the motivational ones. Because I believe genuinely, and with everything I have observed about women, ambition, and leadership, that the most important work you'll ever do for your career, your goals, and your growth is not on a spreadsheet or a performance review or a 5-year plan. It is on the inside. And most of us have been told the opposite. Welcome to 1-800 Gold Digger, a space for honest conversations where I share the ugly truth that lives underneath all the glamour and celebration of success and growth. I'm your host, Mika Liu. Let's dive into today's episode. Let's come back to the question I left you with a moment ago. What does grief have to do with ambition? What does a conversation with my mother have to do with how you show up at work? Here's the answer. Everything you have been carrying quietly, the unresolved things, the patterns you inherited, the weight you never named, it doesn't stay at the door when you walk into a boardroom. It walks in with you. It sits in the chair next to you. It shapes how you hear feedback, how you handle conflict, how much of yourself you allow to be seen. The inner work is not separate from the professional work. It is the professional work. And I know that because of where I work. I work in technology sales. If you know that world, or any world where the template of success was built long before women arrived, you know the unspoken rules. Be assertive. Stay confident. Never let them see you uncertain. Ambition is loud. Strength is an armor. Emotion is a liability. So we learn. We learn to lead from the surface, to project authority before we feel it, to perform a version of confidence that fits the room, even when it doesn't fit us. We learn to manage the softer parts of ourselves, the intuition, the empathy, the emotional intelligence, because we have been told implicitly and explicitly that those parts are vulnerabilities. We edit ourselves, we armor up, and we get very, very good at it. The armor works for a while. And then one day, the woman underneath all that performance starts asking questions that the armor cannot answer. Am I building this for me? Or for the version of me that was told this is what success looks like? How much of what I call strength is actually just fear wearing a very convincing costume? Is there a version of power that does not require me to hollow myself out to hold it? Those are not signs that something is wrong with you. Those are signs that something is finally waking up. And if that is you, if you recognize yourself somewhere in that, I want to say something to you directly. This is for you. You are exceptional at what you do. You perform under pressure. You deliver. You hold things together that would fall apart without you. At work, at home, sometimes both at the same time. You have earned every room you're in. And you still wonder sometimes in the moments nobody else sees if you're actually enough. You have learned to lead from outside in. Train yourself to project confidence before you feel it, to be the most prepared person in the room because that's the only way you know how to feel safe in it, to be competent and capable and composed even when something inside you is tired or uncertain or asking for something you have never let yourself ask for. You are the woman who was told by your industry, by the culture, by years of watching who gets rewarded and who gets passed over, that your soft side is a risk, that your empathy is too much, that your intuition is not data, that to be taken seriously, you need to be harder, more like the leadership that was there before you. So you became that, and you are good at it. But here's what I want to say to you. The parts of you that you have been managing are not your weaknesses. They are your most underused assets. Your empathy, your genuine ability to feel the emotional temperature of a room, to understand what someone needs before they say it, to lead in a way that makes people feel seen. That is not softness. That's the thing that makes rooms feel different after you leave them. Your intuition, the quiet, persistent sense that something is off, that a decision is missing something, that a person in front of you is carrying more than they're saying. That is not a feeling. That is pattern recognition your conscious mind has not yet caught up. Your willingness to go inward, to look at the grief, the guilt, the complicated relationship with your mother, the weight you carry from being the strong one, that is not navel gazing. That's the work that makes every other kind of work more honest. Because here is what I have learned. The most effective leaders are not the loudest people in the room. They are the most present, the most honest about who they are, the most capable of sitting with discomfort, their own and other people's, without flinching. And you cannot get there by performing. You can only get there by going in. Okay, I want to share something with you, and I'm going to get a little nerdy for a second. But stay with me because I think this is going to land. There's a researcher named Dr. Tasha Eurich. She is an organizational psychologist who spent years studying one question: how well do leaders actually know themselves? What she found is genuinely wild. 95% of people believe they are self-aware, but the actual number is somewhere between 10 and 15%, which means, as she puts it, on a good day, about 80% of people are lying to themselves about themselves. Not intentionally, but genuinely not seeing themselves as clearly as they think they are. And here's the part that really got me. It actually gets worse the higher you climb, because the more senior you become, the fewer people around you are willing to tell you the truth. You stop getting honest feedback, which means the people with the most influence over other people's lives are often the ones with the biggest blind spots. What Eurich found is that self-awareness is the foundation for high performance, better decisions, and stronger relationships. Not talent, not credentials, not strategy. Knowing yourself clearly is what makes all of those things actually work. Knowing yourself clearly is what makes everything else actually land. The qualities you were told to hide are the ones they now study. You have probably heard of Daniel Goleman. He is the researcher who basically put emotional intelligence on the map. His work, which has been studied and built upon for the 30 years since it was first published, found something that I think a lot of women in professional spaces need to hear out loud. The thing that separates a good leader from an exceptional one is not IQ. It is EQ, specifically self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, social skill. And then this one really got me. A McKinsey analysis of women CEOs found that women tend to naturally score high on exactly the qualities that research now considers essential for modern leadership: relational intelligence, systems thinking, learning mindsets, purpose-driven vision, the same qualities we spent years being told to minimize. The same ones we learned to quietly edit out of professional rooms so we would be taken seriously. The research is not subtle about this. What we were told was our liability is actually our advantage. We just never got the memo. The number that puts all of this in context: if most of us lack self-awareness, And the qualities women already carry are the ones great leadership actually requires. Why are women still only 29% of the C-suite? Why is full parity 50 years away? McKinsey's Women in the Workplace report, they have been running this study for 11 consecutive years, found that women make up nearly half of the entry-level employees. We are showing up and doing the work, but by the time you get to C-suite, that number has dropped to 29%. And at the current pace of progress, true leadership parity for all women is almost 50 years away. 50 years. I do not think that number is just a diversity statistic. That number is not that women lack ability. We have already established that the qualities women tend to carry are the ones leadership research now prizes. The answer is that we have been spending enormous energy adapting ourselves to a template that was never built for us, learning its rules, speaking its language, performing its version of strength. And then we wonder why it is exhausting, why it feels hollow, why we get to a certain level and something still does not feel like ours. It was never designed to be, which means one of the most radical things a woman in leadership can do right now is not to become more like the template. It is to lead from what is genuinely already hers. I want to tell you about a moment in a sales meeting that I still think about. I was presenting to a senior leader, someone with real authority, someone who had the kind of presence that fills a room before they speak. And partway through my presentation, I could feel something shift, not in what was being said, in the energy. She had gone somewhere else. Not hostile, just somewhere else. The version of me from a few years earlier would have pushed harder, talked faster, performed more confidence to compensate for the discomfort. Instead, I stopped. I said, I wanted to make sure I'm actually addressing what matters to you. What is the thing underneath this direction that you have not yet said out loud? She paused, and then she told me something she hadn't told anyone else in that process. A fear, a real fear, about what the decision could mean for her team. I didn't get there by having better slides. I got there by being present enough to notice something she was not saying, by being comfortable enough with silence to let it do its work, by being secure enough in myself to stop performing and start listening. That is what self-leadership looks like in practice. Not a framework, not a list of principles. A woman who knows herself well enough to be fully in the room. When you do the inner work, when you actually sit with your grief, examine why you became the strong one, understand where your patterns come from, you stop reacting from old wounds and start responding from genuine awareness. Because here is what I know. The woman who has sat with her own grief will not panic when someone on her team is falling apart. The woman who has examined why she became the strong one will not unknowingly require everyone around her to be strong too. The woman who has done the honest work on herself will not need external validation to feel stable inside a room. That is what self-leadership builds, not confidence as a performance. Stability as a foundation. I want to tell you what the season has actually been. Not a series of podcast episodes. A body of evidence. Evidence that the inner work is the work. The grief episode taught me how to hold loss without letting it own me. The mother episode taught me where my patterns came from, so I could choose which ones to keep. The strong one episode taught me that strength without self-knowledge is just endurance. The confidence episode taught me that the foundation is never the performance. It is always the inner work. Every personal story I have shared this season, every uncomfortable truth I said out loud instead of editing it into something more palatable, it has all been pointing at the same thing. The pursuit of growth shouldn't come at a cost of forgetting your inner self. You can be ambitious and self-aware. You can be driven and emotionally intelligent. You can lead with strategy and with empathy. You can be the most prepared person in the room and the most present. These are not opposites. They were only ever made to feel that way. And the women who have figured that out, who have stopped performing strength and started building it from the inside, they are the ones changing the room, not by being the loudest, by being the most real. Here's one question I want to leave you with. Where in your life right now are you leading from your armor instead of from yourself? Sit with that. That's where it starts. If this episode landed somewhere honest for you, share it with the woman in your life who is exceptional and still does not fully know it. Let us say what is hard to say directly. And if you have a story you want to share, something this season has stirred up, a truth you have been carrying quietly, a version of this that is yours, send me a voice DM on Instagram at 1-800-GOLD-DIGGER. With your permission, your voice could be part of a future episode because this show was never meant to be just mine. It was always meant to be ours. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. This is 1-800-GOLD-DIGGER, and I will talk to you in the next episode.